Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Darwin, and in today's video I will take a look at some of the patch updates for 7.1, as I'm expecting the patch to come in with a lot of good changes. First of all, there's a lot of class changes, not primarily for the rogues. There are a few quality of life changes for rogues, like for example, King's Bane, which is the assassination rogue artifact weapon, will now grant 1 combo point. And now you'll also be able to see the debuffs of Ghostly Strike, Hemorrhage, and Mark for Death on the enemy. But there are a lot more changes happening for other classes. A lot of them are quality of life changes. Some of them are very much needed PvP adjustments, and others are interesting damage tuning that I really want to experience as soon as 7.1 launches. But while going through a list, I found a few things that I wish rogues got in 7.1. So today's video is basically my list. And it's my wish list, with Christmas coming around the corner right after Halloween, but you'll be surprised how many Walmarts already have Christmas decorations up. Anyway, this is going to be my 7.1 Rogue wish list video, basically talking a little bit about some of the quality of life changes. Most of the quality of life, some are damage tunings and whatnot, but I'll get to them as we get to the list. First quality of life change that I would like to see in Legion is Shadow Dance not having a global cooldown. Right now, Shadow Dance is really weird when it comes to global cooldown. It's not the default global cooldown, but it is some form of a global cooldown. The way the ability basically works is, if you're using other abilities, let's say you're spamming Backstab over and over, you can't really use Shadow Dance right in the middle of Backstabs being spammed. So as you are seeing that icon for globals just flashing by, you cannot use Shadow Dance in midst of globals. But what you can do is use Shadow Dance and at the same time use something like Cheap Shot or Shadow Strike, or really any abilities that require stealth. But those can be done only at the same time. Sometimes I've had situations where I'm trying to use Shadow Strike and Shadow Dance at the same time, and they're both on 2 different keybinds, because that's how I keep my abilities. I keep them separated by keybinds, don't really macro them together. I get situations where I do land a Shadow Dance right after a Shadow Strike, and it's like a combination of Shadow Dance, Shadow Strike kind of deal, and it just fits so well, and I'm able to get into the Shadow Dance state while using Shadow Strike at the same time. But then there's moments where I somehow just accidentally hit Shadow Strike just slightly too quickly. So then in the end it shows up as I hit Shadow Strike, nothing happens, and then I go into Shadow State phase, and in my brain I already process the idea that I hit both buttons at the same time. Just sometimes the interval is a little bit different. And this gets even more emphasized when you get into really high rated PvP situations, or I guess really high stress situations where adrenaline is pumping, whether you're going for high rated arenas or you have some crazy 1v2 in a BG going on. Just whenever those situations get a little bit more hectic, it becomes a little bit more difficult having to use Shadow Dance and Shadow Strike, or variation of Shadow Dance and any Shadow enabling ability, or Shadow stealth enabled ability. It's a bit difficult to have to put it together, and some people have done it through macros, where a macro will basically activate one and the other. But I am the kind of person that doesn't need to macro in most cases, and to have to be macroing this together, just one after the other, back to back, Shadow Dance and Shadow Strike together. But what if I don't want to use a charge of Shadow Dance and I just really want to use a Shadow Strike, but then it keeps spending, we get into a lot of the messiness that comes with macros. So I feel like it would help out a lot for Salvage Rogues if Shadow Dance was not on a global cooldown. So you could use it right before the global cooldown ends, in midst of abilities. So you would maybe go kidney the enemy, and as the global cooldown marker goes halfway through, you can use Shadow Dance, and it will be its own cooldown. Shadow Dance will have its own cooldown, and then right after the kidney ends, you can use it in a full Eviscerate or whatever ability that you got lined up right afterwards. I just feel like taking the ability off of the global cooldown would be a little bit easier to manage with, especially for anybody playing Subtlety, and I think it would just make it just a generally nice quality of life change. Another thing that would change are some of the honor talents. While all of the honor talents are very unique, and some of them have specific purposes once in a while, some are just not all that desirable in the game currently. Now, in most of these cases, I like to give some kind of a solution to give an idea, like, hey, I got an idea. Maybe if we do A or B or C as an answer in order to change whatever is the issue. I like to offer solutions whenever I can, but here I don't really have one. But when you take a look at some of the PvP and honor talents, for example, flying daggers for assassination. As a PvP talent, it increases fan-on-ice damage by 150% if it strikes 3 or more targets. Now, this honor talent I would never, ever pick up unless I'm running Alterac Valley or Isle of Conquest, and I don't really run Alterac Valley and Isle of Conquest at all. In arenas and battlegrounds where we don't have the whole team stacked up on top of one another, in most cases it's best to use abilities like Mutilate for the common point generation, and as well as also simply deals more damage on a single target. And when you spread pressure to more than one targets, you simply use Mutilate to build common points and then spread your pressure on, here we go, one target with Rupture, full 5 common points, here's another target with full 5 Rupture common points. Nobody really goes in BGs and just uses Fan of Knives over and over and over for effective common point building, let alone being able to deal decent damage. Right now, Deadly Poison as a poison deals okay damage, but it's not quite the rip of a Feral, and I would say even abilities like Rupture and Garrow deal more damage, so basically Fan of Knives becomes useless on its own. And while we're on topic of Assassination Rogue honor talents, let's take a hard look at Mind-Numbing Poison, and I feel like that ability might need a buff. Maybe take another look at Shiv as well, that would be nice, because I don't really see those abilities being used currently, not for fun, neither in competitive nature. They're just so niche and they get completely outclassed by Deadly Brew, hands down. For subtlety, I think, I haven't seen abilities of Enveloping Shadows be effective at all. I haven't really seen Weapon Master at work either, or Gloomblade. Those are some of the coolest and interesting talents that I've originally read when we first were seeing Subtlety Rogue changes since the alpha and into the beta. And it's kind of just sad to see some of these talents just not even be viable, not even be useful by the end of the game. And it's just like, it would be so cool if there was some way to make them viable or just as competitive, because right now both Weapon Master and Gloomblade are pretty useless. As Master of Subtlety, I believe that's what it is, Master of Subtlety, it outclasses them both. It is so much more effective for the way Subtlety is currently played, and I guess I would really want to see some buffs to some of the talents that are less likely to be seen by everybody else. And let's just talk about Outlaw Rogues a little bit. What the hell is Parlay useful for? It's the weirdest ability ever for Outlaw Rogues. It is basically a sap that cannot be used in combat. And the best way to sap a target is while you're in stealth, so while you're out of combat. So it makes no sense to have that ability, because you can't use it on a target that's already in combat. It is such a weird ability, and if it was an actual CC, like a 20-second CC that replaced blind, then maybe I could see it being put to good use. Maybe if I had like some crazy energy requirement for it, but it also replaces your blind, so then it just makes it just, why would you ever use it? I haven't even seen anybody use it for PvE, let alone PvP. God bless anybody that actually tries that ability. And the last one I will talk about when it comes to talents is Anticipation. I feel like I could use Rework. With Vigor and Deeper Stratagem on the same talent tree, I feel like those two passives provide an actual buff to the spec, whatever spec you're playing, whether it's damage or utility. Anticipation gets you ability to store common points. But that's about it. You don't have increased energy regen, you don't have a bigger pool of energy to work with, neither do you have 6 common points to work with instead of 5, and 10% increase to all finishers. So it's just like, why is it even there? It used to be really good and somewhat competitive when it comes to PvE or PvP when it was on the same line as Mark for Death, because then it dealt with common point generation, whether you want to generate 5 common points or store, so like over generate common points. And where it currently sits is basically useless. The other two end up benefiting the rogue, but the Anticipation, if it actually did something or had some interesting effect that was used for PvP or PvE, then I could see it being useful. So I think it'd be cool if Blizzard were to take a look at that talent, because otherwise it just will never get used. And lastly, this is just a personal one. This is just not even a real one, but I really would like to see Subtlety return to being able to burst. I would love to see Subtlety have some bursty spec. More if Blizzard maybe make Thieves Bargain more effective for damage, and maybe took away even more health. I mean, it would be like a give and take kind of system, but I think it would be very interesting, even if it wasn't viable. Like honestly, I would be fine if Subtlety had a build that was massive all-in burst, like all in or nothing, once a minute burst, kind of like how it had back in the day. But that build was useless and non-competitive, but it was still fun to play in BGs. That's just what I would like to see. Because then it's like, for somebody who's me, who doesn't really care for subtlety as much as some of the other players, would love to just go in and deal some massive, just hella massive bursts with some massive DFA, 6 combo points, something crazy, and just like play around with it and have fun with it. Because that's what games are for, and foremost, they're all about having fun. So again, I would like to see how, that's just a personal one. Santa, please could you put it on the list, but please bring subtlety, some kind of a bursty build. Anyway guys, this is it that I have for the changes and my wish list of what I would like to see in Legion 7.1. What are your thoughts on some of the changes that you would want to see? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys. Anyway, my name is Dalaran. It's been my wish list for 7.1, and I'll see you guys in the next one.